fitness gives a lot of people a great sense of home and belonging, and really being a part of a community that's bigger than you. And you don't get that in a lot of places in the world. So I think today, Ryan.
Myself, Ben.
Ryan.
I'm Jacob.
We're going to talk about that today. Kind of, where do you fit into fitness, and where does kind of fitness fit into you in your life, and kind of the role that you play into it. We were kind of having this discussion a little earlier, and we decided to record it. Kind of, what do you get out of fitness, and what is the direction that you plan to go with it in your life? And I think a big topic is it a hobby for you, or is it, what would be the other term you would call it other than hobby?
Obsession.
Yeah, obsession, or
Obsession.
yeah, are you all in?
Yeah, are you all in?
And what is the line between those two? I think it's difficult to define.
Is there anything more? Or is that...
No, that's it. Thanks for listening to the podcast.
No, I just wanted to make sure that was the completion of the thought.
Well, that was the first thing we want to talk about. So yeah, essentially, I think on a greater scale, we've been reading a lot in this house about some deeper things on a philosophical level, and I think us in the Western world, we forget that there's things other than capitalism. Like, there are Marxist societies, like there are communist societies, and naturally we live in a capitalist environment, and all our behavior is that of a capitalist society. And that threshold between fitness, and it starts out for everybody sort of this like super fun hobby, which is awesome, but there's a point in time, and capitalism kind of serves this for all of us, is that point in time when you realize, shit, like I could take this a little more serious. And that point when you start to take it serious, it turns from hobby to now competing, and that kind of begins the obsession, the fine line. And I think a lot of people just aren't honest about when that hobby now becomes obsession.
Yeah, there's so many places. Again, I don't want to take it too off track, but the immediate thing that I think of when I hear about, I just listen to you say those things, is that I think sometimes you fall in. Like, it's not even so much that you're pursuing something and you really keep saying, like, I want to be pro at this. It's almost like with a lot of, I think the unique thing about both of these endeavors, which is like physique sports, is that they're kind of unique. Whereas when you grow up, you have to do sports, or try them at least. Where with physique sports, they're usually last in line.
Yeah. They
come after the conventional sports do. And you do it once, and it feels so different than, again, this is my perspective, but it feels so different from playing basketball with a team or playing baseball with a team, that it's almost like that rush of, wow, this is so different. This is out there. I didn't know this was out here for 20 some years. And I mean, I grew up playing team sports all through my adolescence, and I think the major thing was like, oh wow, so I can put in 100%, and it doesn't necessarily mean that 100% is not going to be returned. Whereas in team sports, it's not out. Like, you can be working harder than anybody else, but if there's other people that don't want to be there, you're all going to suffer as a team.
It's like being an offensive lineman. Nobody really knows. They only know you did your job if they don't notice you.
Yep.
Like, they only notice when you mess up, essentially.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Or like the kicker.
Yeah.
So I think what's really intriguing or interesting about it is you do it, and then you find that, like, I'm thinking about this more. Oh, wow. I'm thinking about, like, it starts to, like, almost eat you from the inside.
Yeah.
Like, it gets your brain thinking on one track, and then it's like it infiltrates your brain. So anyway, building on that into some of the other concepts you brought up, that I think it can be difficult when you get really engaged by something new for it not to become almost unhealthily
Absolutely.
an obsession. And I think it can be very difficult to, again, I'm trying not to lose the bottom line of what we were saying. Shit, I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
Well, I kind of have something to go off right away. One thing that Jake and I were talking about earlier is that, like, with those sports, you get to a point where you realize, like, man, I could get good at this, or I can make money at this. And you reach a point where I think you have to be honest with yourself, and I don't think you're honest with yourself about it until it's in hindsight, to be honestly, ironic enough.
Okay, you got where I was going.
Yeah. Because you're in the trench, you're in the obsession, and you keep telling yourself, oh, it's a hobby, I love it, it makes my life better, I fit in, and you're so lost in this in this thing. I mean,
you can't even see it.
It's slowly getting its grip on you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so that kind of ties back into what I was saying earlier about capitalism, right? Because, like, let's say today I invented a new game called let's say I invented a new game called basketball. Basketball's out, we all know that. It would be fun, everyone would love to enjoy it, then some people would like to come watch. Then one day, I don't know when that day would come as an inflection point, one person would lose, not like it, and say, fuck this, I'm gonna practice every day now.
Yeah.
And then they would form an organization. Then they would start having teams, and there start being money, then there start being pro. And it's like things slowly turn into obsession, because in a capitalistic society, to be good at anything, I have to be honest with you guys, like, to be good at this business, or for me to be good personally at powerlifting, you can't dabble, because the competition is so deep now that if you like to lose and you're okay with losing, then I would say you're okay with having it as a hobby.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because you're not in it for the competition.
And I guess if you want to take it, like, as the opposite, as, like, being more capitalist and just competing and having it be as an obsession, the thing I think about in my head is, like, how do you know, even if that's necessarily a bad thing? Like, who's to say whether it is bad to be obsessed with it or not? And a lot of times that's sheerly based off if you're succeeding in it. So I guess maybe, Ben, do you have, like, any insight? Like, how would you know?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. And, man, thank you guys you got it, and you brought it back onto the rails. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
All that dust on you.
It's dusty. It's hazy. A little bit hazy. So I think the analogy we used briefly when we discussed, what we were going to kind of touch on today was that I think there's an element of realness in conventional sports as you're growing up, where you don't really have a choice to be on the team or not. You can want to be on the team, but you could want as bad as you possibly can, and you might just not make the cut.
In conventional sports.
Sports, especially growing up. Like, I remember in high school for us, or, like, try out for the teams, and if you don't make it, you just didn't make it. There's nothing you could do to get on the team. And the thing about physique sports is that it's almost like delaying or prolonging potential reality for a lot of people. And I think this applies to me too, in that you want to believe, just like that naive and excited child going into conventional sports, but there's nobody there to say you didn't make the team. And when someone does, you have your whole team of your biased team behind you, your family. You should have won. That guy, you were better than that guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Your left calf tendon was 2 inches. You know what I mean? Like, they'll find anything to make you feel better about yourself about it. And everybody's avoiding being real with you.
That's so interesting, because it's almost like, coming from, like, just my perspective, like, and just talking about being honest with yourself, it's an interesting mindset, almost like a dichotomy between those two ways of thinking. And whereas I would be like, I hear that all the time, and I heard it from my parents, I guess, too, growing up, that encouragement of like, oh yeah, like you did a good job, blah blah blah. And like now when people tell me that, in my head I'm just like, you don't mean that. No, I didn't. I lost. Like, didn't you see it? Like,
yeah, it's like comforting.
Yeah, so like it's weird because like I use that and then I know like I didn't do good.
Yeah.
Like, but some people will take that and run with it.
Yes.
Well, I think that gets back to like the literally like one of the major tenets of de novo nutrition, which is objectivity. Like, if you were running yourself as a business, let's put it in terms most people can understand, what would be your return on investment for things for a hobby? I don't think you need to measure a return on investment for a hobby. It's just something that you do for pure flow, as we've mentioned, or mental enjoyment. But can you be honest with yourself in 2 steps? And this is what I've done in my life, and I think a lot of us have. Am I all in this? And even if you don't realize you're all in it, I think you need to really analyze yourself and say, how much effort am I really, like, am I obsessed about this? And as Jake said earlier, I don't think there's anything wrong with being obsessed. I think most things in life are competitive enough that you have to be all in to some degree to really be competitive. Now, if you don't want to be competitive, it's fine, do it as a hobby. But if you do feel any sort of way over the consumption side of things, then that means you need to say, okay, I am all in. You only have one life. You have 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, like the rest of us. You have to think to yourself, I'm all in. This is what I'm getting for my return. You can only be all in on one thing. So this kind of touches on like the Gary V's and the Tim Ferriss, like work on your strengths. And they don't say work on your strengths because you ignore the things you're bad at. But if you want to get something out of life, like you have to be honest with yourself. And one example Ben always uses every day, he says, Ben has been, I'll say it, he's been one of the more successful coaches this year in the United States. I mean, we won the USAPL men's title. So that's not my opinion, that's a fact. So he won't say that, but I'll say it. So he's, and me, look at me too, right? I'm here. And so one thing about Ben that a lot of people don't know is that Ben wanted to be an athlete. It was only injury that kept him out of it. Like Ben, like people go up to Ben and talk about coaching, how great of a coach he is. He's only a great coach because he was fucking obsessed with trying to be a great athlete.
Yeah.
And I just think it gets back to, are you forcing your role and trying to force a very low ROI as if I were a business?
Yeah.
And you were breaking even every time. Would you keep doing it? Or, I mean, that's when the sport gets unhealthy, I think.
I think about that, the Jim Collins book.
Yeah. Good to great.
Yeah, where he.
Thank you, Maggie. If you listen to these, if you don't, then that's fine too.
Where he says, if you can't be the best in the world at your core business, then you should quit or you should find whatever it is that you can be the best in the world at. And I like thinking about that from an individual perspective. What can you like really be the best in the world at? And I think it can be a very specific thing, but you have to be brutally honest with yourself and objective yourself about the facts. Like if you can't look in the mirror and say like I can just be the best, bodybuilder, period, then like maybe it's just not the best thing for you to just be the best pure bodybuilder. But it's interesting with the advent of like social media and things like that. It's like, well, I can be the best bodybuilder who also does like
only cooks pumpkin recipes.
Or something like, something weird. So if you're looking at it, from a capitalistic perspective, I think there's a lot of opportunity to be good at things and be obsessed with things, I guess, if you want to put it that way. But you have to stay based in reality about what you can actually succeed in, I think.
Again, so many thought patterns, and I'm going to try to merge them all into one unified statement in regards to all of that and all like awesome points.
Awesome.
And I think the place where I'd start would be saying that I think we look at who you look up to when you first get in. I think that's a huge influence on you, because you try to identify with somebody that you feel like has elements of you. And the thing that's important to understand about even getting in, or the people you look up to now, is that you actually don't know those people, and you think you do, and you want to know them. But what you've created is a facade, because maybe you meet, it's just like celebrity. Like maybe you meet this person once and they took a picture with you and shook your hand, and that was all it took to confirm in your brain that that's an awesome person. That's a good person. And what the problem is you don't know the 99% of that person's life, meaning, and it's not all bad things, I just mean simply on a genetic perspective too. You might look on the outside and say, okay, it looks like he didn't have that great of a baseline point, but you didn't actually know him growing up. You didn't train with him. You didn't see how quickly he responded to training, all of these variables. So my point is, I think one of the first things to note is who you look up to can be impactful, and you can't use them as a basis of comparison. It's the same idea as making the associative reasoning of saying Jay Cutler uses Muscle Tech, therefore if I use Muscle Tech, I'm going to look like Jay Cutler.
I wear Michael Jordan shoes, I'm going to jump like Michael Jordan.
Exactly. And,
like Mike, that was a good movie. Remember that one?
Yep.
And physique sports thrive on that mental grip on people. So I think that's one thing to realize. The next thing to realize is that I don't think any of us are saying give up. Like if you come to terms and you come to the conclusion at this objective reality that, okay, maybe I'm not as good as I wanted to be, maybe things aren't going my way, well, then I should just give up. No, we're saying find your role then. And the interesting thing about the internet that you said is like there's opportunity for tons of niches. That's good and bad. If you're trying to be the world leader in this one little niche, that's probably going to end up in a bad thing. But if you can hone in on a niche that you're really good at, I think...
Yeah, and I think the key thing is you shouldn't really have to try.
Exactly.
If you're going to be the best at it, just like...
You don't have to force it.
Yeah, just like, I mean, some people genetically can, have bigger muscles, have certain attachment points. Genetically, it's like, or environmentally, just how you were raised, however you got to this point, you shouldn't just have to try that hard. Whatever the thing is, you're gonna be the best.
It should happen. That's the thing, is it should happen naturally, and if it doesn't, life hits hard on the long-term scale.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So if you've spent 30 years believing you're going to be something and only being around yes people, I'm sorry, but man, it's going to be ugly. When it finally hits you in the face. The other thing I wanted to say is thank you, Ryan, for saying those things. I appreciate that, and I'm happy you brought them up, because you're right. I never would have, but there is something that I think is important to disclose about anybody who does know of any people's programming I've been associated with or success in that domain, is that Ryan's 100% right. Like, I was obsessed with the athletic side of it, and that drove me to almost like the point of, I don't care if I get really hurt, I need to find out these answers, because
squat maxing every day, and deadlift maxing every day.
So the experimentation was like a panic experimentation. I've always been good at sports to a certain degree. Like, I never got cut from teams or anything. I always started, I was decent, and this was the first thing that, like, I couldn't even, like, I was just fighting to keep my head above the water from drowning.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I loved it so much that I didn't want to fall behind. And I told you today, like, I did the Arnold twice.
Yeah.
My best showing was like dead last place. But I was like, I'm going to find something out. And I guess getting pretty seriously injured and not having the option to train forced me into this objective reality place. And in this period where I was visiting grad schools, potentially to do a PhD, I remember, I think I heard this twice. Like they were asking me what I wanted to study and why I'm involved, and I kept referencing I'm involved because of exercise and exercise research and stuff like that and bodybuilding. And each of the people that I was interviewing with said, yeah, that's what we were doing too. That's how we got into it too.
Wow.
It's like, and it's funny because I think a lot of times people who are obsessed with wanting to be that thing, they just are really good with information and they end up in academia and they end up studying it. It's like
yeah, absolutely.
the people who loved fitness and liked science with it together and just weren't the best athletes. So I thought that was really really interesting. And my point in saying again all of these things is like, maybe you can't be the athlete, but maybe you can help the athletes be better athletes.
Absolutely.
And I think that always feels like at least to me, like a lesser role, because I still want to be the athlete, but you can still be involved. Like, and I'm still happy to be involved in fitness.
Absolutely.
Like, it's probably my favorite area compared to the other things I studied in, sterilized school, which could like food service, nutrition, and stuff I just knew I didn't want to do. The last point is if anybody likes instrumental guitarists or plays music at all, you probably know who Steve Vai is. And it's funny that you said it was referenced in like 2 other books about working on only your strong points. And Steve Vai, every time I watch him do a talk, he's an instrumental guitarist, he just talks, he's like, I don't work on my weak points. I only work on my strong points. And that sounded so preposterous to me. Because it's like, well, why wouldn't you just want to be better as completely?
Yeah.
But he wants to be the best in the world, so he only works on his strong points.
That's exactly like.
Yeah.
You shouldn't, like, I guess in that way it's like you get kind of like funneled, right? So it's like you kind of naturally have these things that you're good at, and those are your strong points, and it may progressively become harder and more difficult to get better at those things, but you get kind of funneled into those avenues where it's like the world is giving you signs. Like,
yeah.
You just have to pay attention.
I think that's hard though, coming from bodybuilding, because your obsession in bodybuilding becomes your weak points. Like the most obsessive thing in bodybuilding is legs. Like people talk about my legs and in bodybuilding, or my glutes, or like my squat. Like, dude, I'll be 100% honest. I was just, if you look at my baby pictures, my legs were just huge. Like they were just always big. Like they're just always been that way. So, I think what's kind of absurd about this sport is the arrogance, because people tell me like, oh man, Ryan is so cool, you're humble. And I don't think that I'm humble. I just think that I don't even know the word for it. It would just be like accepting to some degree. Like, I think I just played the game right. One thing I always say, and I always say in this house, and I've said it on publicly, is that I love to fight. And if you talk to a lot of people who are successful at the top of their sport, they share that with me. So publicly, there's not a lot of things that people who are at the top of the game say publicly. But I've had conversations with some of the other top people behind closed doors, and it's like the whole Richard Sherman thing. So like Richard Sherman should have never told that to the public. Yeah. So like I agree with him 110%. Yeah. Like everything he said, I was like, yep. But I know that like to those non-elite people, they won't identify with it. And trust me, your favorite people I have these conversations with. Like, I have a lot of friends in this industry, and we all side with it, unless you're Brian Whitaker, who I don't understand at all, who's just the most calm, fierce guy ever. But I don't understand that. But again, that ties into the ROI thing we were talking about with all of these things Ben said, and like Jake was saying, how building on your strengths is that. I always say this, regardless of what you believe or where your faith is or whatever's going to happen to you when you die, like, you know, you only have a certain numbers of years here. It doesn't matter. I don't whatever you want to do after that, that's fine. But here, you know that you should try to maximize the experience for yourself here. And to maximize the experience for yourself here, I think for a lot of us, happiness is tied to that. And if you want happiness as a can, we sell Utopian 30 servings. That's for $32.40.
God, that is good.
Tell them about the dopaminergic response.
We'll save that for another episode.
But to me, my life is literally being as sustainably happy as I can. Now, I'll be honest, this week I've worked, what's today, Thursday, and I think I'm probably at 70 hours already. I've been pretty relentless this week. But I know that in the sustainable long term, there's two things about this week, is that I've gotten to fight through some adversities, and I've gotten to break through. And two of my favorite things, naturally, is fighting. I know some people who have anxiety and they hate fighting, but like, if someone gives me confrontation or if someone gives me a challenge, I don't think there's anything I like more than that. I naturally like it. So how are you going to beat me or anyone? Or actually, I'll use Lane as an example. Lane told me that he likes to create a deficit to like come out of, like, be the underdog and come out of it. That's what he told me the other day. And everyone has their thing. And I think if I were the type of person, I'm using me personally. What were you gonna say?
Well, I was just gonna say, well, you got to pick and choose your fights, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think people, like, I only pick fights that I know I have a good chance of winning.
Yeah.
And like, that sounds like I'm a quitter or something like that. But like, it's strategic.
Am I going to play that game or not?
It's exactly.
Non-participation or participation.
So Jake and I know Ben's gotten actually Ben got into it a bit too. So Jake and I have talked heavy on terms of I guess in this obsessive game of whatever you choose, whether it be some type of fitness. I don't know how familiar you all are with like economics and game theory. But we talk about game theory a lot. What's that guy's name from Beautiful Mind? What's his name again? Who came up with not John Nash?
Yeah,
John Nash. Yeah, we talk about Nash equilibrium a lot. So like, his whole idea was don't play. One time we went bowling, and I was just talking shit. I don't even know how to fucking bowl, but I was talking shit. And that's just about how I'm gonna do well and blah blah blah. And everyone's getting excited, getting their shoes on. And then Jake's sitting down, and I'm like, Jake, where's your shoes? And he didn't even answer me. I was like, Jake, are you gonna bowl? And he's like, no, I'm not gonna bowl. And like, I couldn't figure it out. Like, I was like, whatever, it's not for me to figure out. And we bowled, and I did well, and then I lost one, and whatever. But Jake showed me something that day, and it was like, within the same week, I learned these two things, and they've really changed my life. It was, one, you don't have to compete if you don't want to. Like, opting out is a choice, and I think we often forget that, and we get into these, I can't quit, I have to keep going, I can't die, I can't let them know. Like, no. You can quit, and you can quit.
Yeah.
You can quit and start investing into something else very quickly. And I want to say the second thing real quick that I've learned from Jake, which has been monumental to me, is advantages. We played this game, Settlers of Catan. And you learn a lot about people's personality through like games, and it's not on Xbox, it's like a board game, strategic board game. And Jake destroyed us, and he only said really like one thing throughout the whole game, and it burns in my head like every day. And he says, when you can get an advantage, keep getting advantages. And I think that's what I mean in the justification of I only pick fights that I can win, is that when I get one advantage, I'll get another one, and I'll get another one, I get another one. So I think if I were the type of person to be like, I'm this far from a pro card, or I'm very far from, you know, what this meet, or I want to go to Worlds. Let's say that's your goal if you want to go to Worlds. Like, okay, have you won Best Lifter at your local meet yet? And that's what I do. I literally pick advantage at a time. And the next meet I pick, I know where I have a good chance of placing and things like that.
I think it's definitely important to, especially in your early, I guess, days of your fitness career or whatever it is that you're doing, it's definitely important to pay attention to those natural advantages that you have. And like I said, they can kind of be keys about your strong points and filter you into things. So I don't know, if you're in the gym and you're, training, and somebody comes up to you and says like, oh man, how'd you get like such big legs, or how'd you get such big arms, or whatever.
I actually just inflated them.
Yeah.
5 minutes ago.
Yeah, there you go. You can actually kind of just see like, oh, I just have this advantage. Like maybe
Ronnie
I can
Coleman.
roll this
Someone else
into
is
something
noticing.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it all feeds back in to the prior points too. Is that there's a lot of mantras in fitness, and a really popular mantra now is that basically we should just keep pushing. And I don't want to use brand names, but like obviously there's a lot of them like that, and you have to apply that appropriately, meaning like if you're just banging your head against the wall and working hard but not actually making any kind of impact in what you want to make an impact, what is there to be proud of in that? Like the part of working hard is producing, and I think we all work hard to see the end point come to some kind of productive end where we're better than when we started.
Well, I think that ties back to objectivity too, because, and that's why I use business as an example, because you have to say objective. There's not one company on earth that's still running the full line production on VHS tapes, saying like, we got to keep doing it. This is what we believe in. This is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And they're not getting the return they want on it. And so that happens to a physique, which I think should be I look at my career physique wise objectively. But if I had a personal connection to what I was actually getting in return, and seeing like no progress, like people forget, like don't get me wrong, like there's people like Stephen Curry who was like rated low and had to like work his way up to the top, but like I guarantee you every year Stephen Curry was making progress.
He gets taste of positive reinforcement.
Yes, and he was making progress to that point. He didn't spend the past 8 years frustrated, losing the same, and told himself that he's never going to stop over and over.
Yeah, I think we work hard with an expected level of return.
Yeah.
And it's like we lie to ourselves sometimes, or I've heard the lies before in fitness, is like, no, I just really like working hard, and obviously you expect that to come to fruition at some point.
Yeah.
So again, tying it all back in is like, you should pick your natural things that you excel at and work hard in them and apply that mantra, not just generically apply the mantra.
So that should be, I'm not saying that should, but what you're good at is a good thing to pick for your obsession. And the hobby should be the thing that you kind of enjoy the most, but you may not be best at.
Yeah, you just kind of do it for fun, and that's. I feel like that can be a struggle though with a lot of people, or at least us in this house, which is like you pick a hobby and then you're like, oh god, I'm gonna get too obsessed with this.
Well, like, and I think that's the hard part. It's like you want to get in and go all in and get obsessed with everything, and then like I think you have to dabble, because like you have to have a passion, right? You have to have an interest. You have to have interest first, and then once you're interested, you can dabble, and then once you dabble, you can commit. Once you commit, you can go all in. And I think people don't take that series of things. I think people often tie a lot of biological desires, like for instance, like muscles for men and women in fitness, it's tied to sex. So you don't think about that. You just say, I want to look this way. Not actual like sex, but you know, the sex as in like the
physical attraction.
Yeah, physical attraction sense or something like that. And so I think like that's where we said earlier, kind of like we're being pragmatic.
Just be realistic with yourself.
But what the fuck? What is even real?
What does that mean?
Exactly.
Right. And where do you draw the line between, okay, is this realistic, or am I giving up, or am I just not trying hard enough?
We don't know.
And all that stuff.
You ain't got the answers, Jake.
Yeah,
you ain't got the answers, man.
But I think it's kind of what Ben said, which is like, look, if you're getting some kind of positive reinforcement. And something I was gonna bring up, which you commonly hear in sports psychology is just being, are you process oriented versus goal oriented? And that can be kind of tough, especially in, I guess, powerlifting and I guess bodybuilding, because I think it is important to be process oriented and actually enjoy the process and enjoy doing it. But I guess at what point do you say, like, am I investing too much in just this process and not seeing anything out of it? And is this detrimental because I am skewed too highly towards this orientation versus being goal oriented?
I think the only way to define detriment at this point in time is if it doesn't allow you to do the things to fulfill your basic needs of life, living in the current scope of society we live in now, which means, like, if you're working at a job that you know you have skills beyond because it allows you to train at this certain gym time and get in your full-on workouts, but there's never going to be any endpoint, again, return on investment in that, now it's holding you back. So I think the only way to really define that it's not a hobby and that it is consuming you and the ratio is skewed, is like, I think, again, I realize it gets back to objectivity, but I think at least this is a level enough where you can look at things outside of you objectively, and it's like, if you're constantly feeling like you can kind of do more, well, look at a big part of your time investment. And I think part of being, I guess, how would I put it? Finding that endpoint that was filling that tank that we say, is the best tank for you to fulfill, is that it might be kind of walking away.
And I think, and I think that's hard because it's very you have this early desire instilled in you in America, at least and I know Western society. Nothing to us in America, I think, is more favored than a rag to riches story. Definitely. So, like, if, let's say, Donald Trump, for instance, regardless of how you feel about him, let's say Donald Trump actually started at zero, he would have a whole different level of respect than he has now. And I think a kind of a Freudian slip in your behavior in fitness is that people think that in life I can start from zero and go to something, but the reality is, in physiology, you can't go from zero to elite. Like, genetically, you can't go rag to riches.
It's almost like saying, like, God, I hope no one gets offended by this. Like, I'm type 1 diabetic. My pancreas is I'm gonna will my pancreas to start making insulin. God damn it!
Yeah. Like, no, it won't happen like that. And the thing is that there's so many people that do go from, like, really, 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 like, shit beginnings to making it to the top,
to relative success,
exactly to the top elite. But, like, I'll be honest, like, you guys may not know Ellis McLean, but, like, Ellis McLean is one of our athletes. He's a
warrior.
He's just a warrior. He's the first human being I've ever met that made me realize I'm not a warrior. Like, I backed off as soon as I met him. I mean, this is me, guys. Like, you've watched all my videos. Like, I closed my channel the day I met Ellis McLean. I was like, I take all of that back. He's just a true man. He's like when Alexander the Great would come to town. And they would be like, okay, we surrender, whatever you want to do. Like, he's that genetically,
there's
he's
prowess,
that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, he is that. So I think it's, for me, it makes me not want to force a role when I see things like that. And it's like the quote I've said, I don't know, years ago, but it's in circulation, and it's what did I say? I said, don't fake passion, because one day you'll meet someone who's truly passionate and you'll be fucking embarrassed about it. And so I think it's having all those things lined up. It's like, does this person have the right, because there are some people, what I'm doing now, there are some people who have the right passion, have the right drive, have the right, and everything.
Dude, it takes a lot to make an elite athlete. Like
not even athlete, dude. Anything.
Elite anything. Yeah.
What time
exactly.
is it? It's 12:30 a.m. Dude, we've been working since
I woke up.
Oh, since
9:30.
Yeah. And like, so it's like, right? Like the reason why this company, even ourselves, is accelerating is because not even about just you can't lie to yourself about what you want to do. Like I didn't want to do this podcast 2 hours ago, and then as soon as we started writing on the board, you know, my mood switched.
Yeah.
You know, there's something I actually really want to touch on though within what you said, which I think is additive to this whole conversation, and it's that part of accepting your reality is also appreciating greatness when you see it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I kind of got lost in the interwebs last night, and I stumbled upon Terence Tao, and if anybody knows who he is, he's like this kind of mind-blowing mathematician who was basically winning international mathematics competitions at like 11 years old, like beating full adults. And basically the way they described him was that he can tie in seemingly unrelatable areas of mathematics, and usually when people get a PhD in something, which by the way he got at 20, I'm sorry. Usually when people get a PhD in something, they kind of spend their career narrowing down into that specific field. With him, basically, he did that and then jumped to a whole nother field and learned more than other PhDs in that field of mathematics. So he basically is just kind of made to do this.
It's Jesse Norris of math.
But my point in it is that not only did he have that genetic starting point, but you could tell if you listen to him or watch him, he just loves math.
That's it.
Like,
that's it.
Not only does he have the beginning point, and mathematicians love him. Because, like, basically, one of the quotes they said is, like, if anybody has a problem with their research or solving some kind of theorem, they all apply to basically kind of work in coordination with him. Like, collaborate on research with him. Like, they even jump their fields.
But
so they appreciate greatness because they can see it, and it makes them better too.
And this kind of ties to one of our other podcasts, and I think this is my inherent problem personally. I'm not speaking on the group with the institutional pressure. Is that in capitalism and in the institution we live in, you have to not do really what you're best at. You have to do what you're most strategic at, and unfortunately enough, I will say fortunately enough, I know us in this group here, for our age and right now and the resources we have, I think de novo is what we're best at and most strategic at right now.
Yeah.
But it took us a lifetime of none of us really
fails.
Dude,
there's no other way of putting it.
Yeah.
This is my fourth business. I started at 10 years old.
Yeah. Like, it's taken a lifetime to get here. And I think not only enduring like those failures, seeing what you are good at and you're not good at, but like going back and forth constantly with yourself of, okay, am I good at this? Am I not good at this? Should I sharpen this skill? Should I do this? Should I read this? Today I said it to Jake, today I read the climate data for Brampton, Ontario. It's a south city in Canada for 500,000 people. I don't know what that's ever going to do for me in my life. I don't know. I have no idea. But something interested me enough to read it.
Yeah.
And I think like that is kind of like appreciating greatness. So appreciating this guy or girl who does climate. I was wondering how you even do it. Like, and it was like hottest day of the month, and it was like 100. I was like, how the fuck do you know? Were you there? Like, there's had to be a hotter day maybe 2 million years ago in this area. But I think the institution inherently doesn't allow you to have time to get there, because like that time needed as a 16-year-old or a 14-year-old to learn how to get good. So by time when you're 18, you're like, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm great at.
So let's throw a wrench into this whole thing really quick. And let's talk about the whole, like, I guess, multi-potentialite.
Yeah. We have to define that first.
So basically, a multi-potentialite, or you could say Renaissance man or woman, is just somebody who has a wide variety of different skills, and they are relatively proficient in all of them, and they are able to interconnect all of these skills in unique and novel ways. And it can be kind of difficult for that sort of person in this kind of society, because you're often told, like, you need to pick one thing to be good at. You gotta pick one thing from the very time, when you can first talk, people are asking you, what do you want to be? Yeah. So it's
what the fuck do I know? I'm 5 years old.
Yeah, exactly. But you're always supposed to pick one thing. And I guess one of the caveats of kind of looking at this as in the capitalistic model and saying, like, what are my advantages, what's my return on investment,
Absolutely.
and things like that, is you also have to realize you are defining things totally based on this model.
On the model you live in.
If you subscribe to that.
Yeah.
Because you could be awesome at something, but society doesn't reward that thing.
Exactly.
So it's like, then what do you do? And I feel like I can identify with that, because I've really never been able to, like, put a finger on, like, what am I really good at?
Yeah.
But somehow in de novo, like, I am able to just really have, some good ideas.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I have the freedom to explore whatever random curiosities I have. So I've been fortunate enough to find a place
Where it's rewarded.
Yeah, where it is rewarded.
But the difficulty of that is finding that organization is because our designer who does all our great design work, Anna,
Come say hi.
Come say hi, Anna.
I'm about to slide in the podcast.
This is who does all of our design stuff.
Yeah.
There's a microphone right there.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Sexy Too Sweet Chocolate.
She told me she told me the other day she doesn't want to, like, because we were talking about, like, this may sound crazy to you guys, but we always talk about what we're going to do after de novo, because who works for one company for 4 years unless you're Joe Weider and Ben Weider? But, like, but she told me the other day, she was like, yeah, I just, like, I don't want to play that game, like, she doesn't want to play the capitalism game. And to tie that, and it's just not what she wants to do, but she's talented, but she can produce work. And then I had a conversation with my nephew today, and this kid is 5 years old, and he was showing me his Halloween candy, and it was this bag, and it was all Snickers. And I was like, how did you get all Snickers? He's like, well, I just traded everybody for their candy for Snickers. And then, like, the kid stuff this kid says, he's like a little me. Like, he just likes to win. Like, this kid is going to grow up, and for no reason he didn't even try, he's going to be good at capitalism. He's going to be good at business. Yeah. Like, and, like, it's not any different that when Jake was growing up, he didn't like those things. He didn't like confrontation. Like, this kid loves to win. He hates to lose. You know what I mean? And it's the same thing, like, what Anna was saying. Like, she doesn't want to do the game. So it's like, de novo is interesting because it's like you have a group of people who are, like you said, multi-potentialites. Did I say that correctly?
I think so, yeah.
It's Renaissance women and men, men and women. But as well, like, you have, like, a small number of, like, we like to bust heads too, so we like to get out there and, like, I love, like, sending emails that are not, like one of my favorite de novo moments was something was late. I forgot. I think it was some shipment or something, and then they said it'll be here's something like 2 to 3 weeks, and then Ben told him that was unacceptable, and then they said, well, when do you need it by? Ben says tomorrow. And it came the next day. Like, and it came the next day because we demanded that. And I think, like, that's the beauty of an organization. not only an organization but a good team. Getting back to like the topic of this, it's like, do you have a good organization around you that's gonna tell you like, hey man, like we need to do this, or you're good at this, or you know what I mean? And I think life in itself, like not only just in fitness, can be lonely sometimes, but like you need to keep people who understand fitness. But like there is a I guess a culture of fitness, and I think, to me, I'll be honest, the leader of that new school is Alberto Nunez, hands down. I think to me, he is the leader of life balance fitness. And like there are people who claim it and shout it, but I think he has been the one.
He personifies it.
Yeah, to the T. Yeah.
But by that same token, it's like interesting because I think he really personifies the like, I am a bodybuilder plus I do plus more.
I just so I'm a bodybuilder.
Yeah. So yeah, making it into a lifestyle, but also at the same time being very good at what he does.
Exactly. So like I can afford this week, and I talk about me all the time, but it's safest. I haven't trained. I just did Raw Nationals. I didn't really train last week or the week before, and I'm not gonna start training probably till next week. That's absolutely absurd.
I've taken a day off.
Like that's absolutely absurd. I'm not doing anything, and that's
and
absurd.
I'm atrophying.
Right. And like this is not like an arrogant statement, but like I'm coming into the Arnold, since now they have the pro meets, the Arnold Raw Challenge for the 93s. I'm coming in with the top nomination. I'm the top ranked guy coming in. So hopefully, if I have a good day, I can stay within top 3, something like that. But I know where I can compete. I know that genetically I can take 3 weeks off. Like, is it most optimal? Right. Probably not. Yeah. Like, I could be, who knows what I could be if I didn't do things like that. But I trade off my talent and my time to do other things in that time, instead of just be better at the sport. I just do enough to say, and it might sound crazy to a lot of people, but I just want to be good enough in the sport. Yep. And I got that actually from Kevin Levrone. He just did what he had to do to be good enough, so like he can play in his band and he can do other things and to stay relevant. And yeah, I mean, I wish I could do all in, but I had to have too many interests, like this business. So don't call me on it because I had to build this, and you're listening to this podcast. So,
well, I think that kind of brings in another element. I guess just going full circle with what we talked about is that I'll just continue on the line of the sports, the conventional sports analogy, and it's that you can afford to be elite and keep, or think or want to be elite and keep going through the next higher steps, because there's financial reward in it. And so like the backup quarterback, by traditional American standards, is no loser. He's a millionaire.
Yeah.
Obviously, he wants to be the first string guy getting all the touchdowns and, being Tom Brady, but he hasn't lost.
Yeah, not at all.
Like, he will retire from the NFL and be able to run quarterback camps for the rest of his life.
Yep.
In powerlifting?
Yeah.
What are you going to do? Be a high school strength coach, maybe? Like, I'm not saying it's a bad thing either, but the point is that, like, if you're only seeing the apex of the mountain dream, it's like everybody's saying they're going to be Phil Heath, and no one's Phil Heath except for Phil Heath. Or like Ronnie. It's like only one person is making it to the top of that. Do that. And in these sports, these non-conventional sports, the reward is thin. And as it grows, hopefully for the sport, it does grow within as well. But
that's kind of a weird part, because like you think of somebody like LeBron James or Michael Jordan, and it's weird because let's say basketball was non-conventional, even without the huge institution of the NBA and the institutional rewards to compare, because only the institution tells us what's elite. We have no idea.
Right.
Like we don't know what's what.
Yeah.
They would still be just as good, and they would play in some park every day somewhere. Definitely. Just like us. I lived in a garage, guys. Garage. Like they would be just like us. So that's the crazy thing about sports, is that, and it's back to, do you do it for the love? Like, do you do this because you love this? So for me, I have about the same lifting schedule as I would with or without the USAPL. It would be just about the same. And the USAPL, I love the USAPL to death, is not going to change me. Love them. Love them. USAPL, love them. Oh man, but that wouldn't change my habits. But that's me, and that's again that it goes back to me being honest with myself and allocating how much ROI I would like versus how much time I would have to invest in this one lifetime that I do have to do things. So
Yeah, I don't really have much else to add. I think we all.
I have one final question.
Go.
Where do you draw the line between confidence and illusion?
I need more further clarification on that.
Okay, it's basically.
question.
Oh, okay. So what we were talking about today, between, no. Like, you remember the first time I squatted 635,
Yeah.
and what was my best squat before that? Like 580 or something like
Yeah.
that. Like,
That's crazy.
right.
I was standing there. I was
How
just
do you know? Like, how do you know? Like, I made that jump, and I literally woke up. I told Jake, I think I'm gonna squat 600 pounds today. Like, and then I remember I texted.
Who was there someone else in the garage?
Paul Boris, our CFO.
I was looking at I was spotting you on one side. I was like, Ryan, please don't. Like, you gotta get this.
But I smoked it, and
Yeah, that's a good.
I have to be honest. Like, I've never really in my life missed a squat. Like,
There it is. You answered your own question. Is if you can make an ambitious statement and it actually comes true. That's the difference
So,
between
and
confidence and
whatever.
illusion.
But that's like
it's
that's
easy
like
hindsight.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
saying like it's only good to gamble if you win.
Yeah, but no, because you're looking at it on a chronic sense.
Yeah.
Because now don't get me wrong, some people do it on a chronic sense and they make ambitious things and get nothing to say. It doesn't come true. But you can try it once and fail and then say, oh, I'm not confident. You become inconfident or unconfident.
It's like the saying, and we used to say this in grad school. It's only hubris if you lose. Like, it's like it's like Alexander the Great. He just
It's all building
ridiculous.
momentum.
Didn't wear armor. Just went out there and just.
Exactly, because
It works.
But it works until it doesn't.
It works until it doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it's easy in hindsight to draw the line between a confident decision that you're making chronically and kind of an illusionary delusions of grandeur type of decision. But like, I don't even have to answer it directly. Do you even think objectively one can draw the line within themselves? Both of you.
My only answer to that would be
My answer to that is talking to a microphone.
is just it can only be a personal response, and it's that data, because that's what I worship.
Data shows.
Is like if you can back it up with enough evidence, then that's the only thing that actually gives you direction towards either one.
Our first podcast. Why do you like science?
That's it. That's my only answer. Beyond that, I don't have an answer to that question.
Solid decisions.
I think that's a good means, and just being aware of your surroundings. I guess social data and collecting that, and it's kind of weird. Like, I feel like a lot of times I just, like you, Ryan, you kind of said like you kind of have that like ferocity, I guess, about you. But it's like I'll kind of like look at like somebody who's being successful or doing well, and I just tell myself like, I can do better than that.
Yep.
Like, to me, that's confidence. But I don't gotta like go, like put it in their face or like yell or anything. But like I just see it and I'm like I can do better than
I can
that.
do that.
Yeah.
I can do that.
Sure.
Yeah. So I think what's ironic enough, and it's kind of like it ties in our relationships personally, is that I'm actually a mix between both your answers. It's like I said, I pick fights I can win. So I see things and I say I'm better than that, but I pick conservatively what I'm best. So like I'm like, oh, I'm better. I can do about 90% of what and I always pick conservative, so I make sure I get the win or the advantage. And then I think in my head that I'm very rational and logical. But if I have any data to kind of like give me confidence in that, and it's kind of the real reason why I like science is because it gives me answers, and answers give me knowledge is power, power is confidence.
Definitely.
And I think the mix of those is good, but that's easy in hindsight when it's already done. But projecting into the future, I have to
Humans
say,
always gonna human. Like
Yeah.
you're gonna have
Yeah,
emotions
definitely.
at some point.
yeah, I would just say I don't know, you know. So awesome. So thank you guys. That was a good one. I
Yeah,
liked that
it
one.
was.
It was a long
good.
one.
It was a long one.
Long down.
Thank you guys. Go to DenovaNutrition.com. By the time this comes out, we will have a new website up, I believe. No, wait, 7, 12, no, 3 more days. So after this comes out. So all right, thank you so very much for listening, guys. We'll talk to you next week.
Toodles.
Bye.